Chapter 11. Angela was going through the motions. She thought she might be in shock, but assumed she needed to feel something for that to be true. She didn't feel anything. It was as if a great chasm had opened beneath her and swallowed her. It was 1 foot in front of the other. 1, 2, 1, 2. That was all she could manage. Dr. Adler told her she should go home. There was nothing she could do here. Her son was in God's hands now. She clocked out, but she couldn't leave. Brandon would wake up. When he did, she would be right at his side screaming, "What the hell were you thinking?" She stepped into the elevator and the doors closed. She fell against the wall, clutching her son's lab reports to her chest. The preliminary tests weren't promising. The techs were whispering about it in the lab. They didn't want to alarm her. She still heard them anyway. Brandon didn't need life support, but he was an empty shell. How many times did she break bad news to worried families? She sympathized with them, but she never knew how they felt until she saw Brandon's broken, bloody body wheeled in on a stretcher. The lab people were her friends. They pushed Dr. Adler's test orders to the top of the list, even though they didn't know this new doctor. It only took a few minutes for them to remember. When was that staff meeting? Angela wondered. Last Wednesday? Could have sworn I was off that day. The harder she thought, the more her head hurt. Whenever she pictured the meeting in her mind, the pain went away. It was easier to remember it than to doubt it, so she didn't fight it. Dr. Adler knew her stuff. She took charge of Brandon when they wheeled him in and remained with him since. Angela believed her son would be in the morgue right now if it weren't for her. It was a lot to owe someone you didn't even know. The elevator bell announced her arrival on the 4th floor. She stepped into the hall. She held her head up and displayed strength, even though she was on the verge of tears. She locked her knees with every step to keep them from buckling. She nodded professionally at the nurse on the station. Her expression was sympathetic. Angela entered Brandon's room. She slammed the door. When she looked up, Dr. Adler glared at her with dark, unblinking eyes. Angela felt the woman's irritation. "Would you care to try again?" Dr. Adler asked. "You might be able to break it if you slam it a little harder." "I don't like the way you're looking at me," Angela challenged, meeting Dr. Adler's hard gaze with a glare of her own. "I told you to go home," Dr. Adler replied. "You did not want to." "I still don't," she said. "I'm not leaving my son." "Suit yourself," the doctor said. She pointed to the file folder in Angela's grasp. "Are those my test results?" Angela was struck dumb and looked down at them. She cleared her throat. "Yes, here," she said, and handed them over. Dr. Adler accepted them with a sneer and stepped into the light by the window. She examined the results with great interest. Angela pulled a chair to her son's bedside and sat down. She took his hand in hers and started to cry. There was a large gash in his forehead. It bled through the gauze around his head, encircling his face. His right cheek was purple and swollen. A thick brace immobilized his neck. There was no cast on his leg. Dr. Adler inserted titanium rods to repair the break. His expression was blank and dead, but his chest rose and fell with the even rhythm of sleep. Angela thought about how much she wanted to shake him and make him open his eyes. Dr. Adler glanced over suspiciously. Angela changed her mind. She was frightened. If she were alone with Brandon, she would already be jumping up and down on the bed. "I do not advise that, Nurse Riley," Dr. Adler said, returning to the test results. "Your son's back is broken. The crash did not kill his body. You do not intend to finish the job, do you?" "Excuse me?" Angela asked. "Who do you think you are?" "I think," Dr. Adler snapped, I am the only chance your son has. Is that not right, Angela? I am the only chance Brandon has. Yes, of course, Angela replied. Her eyes rolled back into her head. You're Brandon's only chance. Good, Dr. Adler smiled. We understand one. Her detached demeanor drastically changed. Her face twisted into a sneer, and her eyes paled. Angela thought they looked blue. Screw this crap, the doctor's mouth said. Her voice was completely different. This is the one I want. What's with all the damn delays? Angela gasped. Dr. Adler dropped the file folder on the floor and grabbed the sides of her head. She concentrated. Angela gripped Brandon's hand. You fool, Dr. Adler spat. If you do not stay hidden, you'll ruin everything. Well, what's the problem? Hiram asked. Angela watched Dr. Adler's lips move when the other voice spoke, but each time it did, her expression was different. He's right here. Why can't we get this done? Dr. Adler glanced over at Angela and said, Do not move. You cannot hear. You are deaf. Angela felt physically struck by the force of her words. She was frozen stiff. She whimpered as her world went silent. Dr. Adler turned away and kept her back to the paralyzed nurse. You listen to me, you buffoon, she spat, grinding her teeth. If you want this to end, then stay out of my way. You're not moving fast enough, Hiram complained. I hate it in here. And I hate having you in there, she replied. You cannot simply be shoved into any available body. There are tests I must perform. I have to get out of here. You will, Dr. Adler insisted, slamming her hand down on the windowsill. But you have to be careful. Adjusting a person's perceptions and memories is not an easy task when my power is so weak. If you make me expend it all in a few short hours, it will take me days to recover my strength. McKee doesn't have that problem, Hiram snorted. Jeremy's power dwarfs mine. It was only my experience that allowed me to hold my own against him. She cautioned, It's not going to stay that way. He becomes more familiar with his abilities with every passing moment. Soon he will be able to crush me as easily as swatting a fly. What should we do then? We need to hurry, but we must be cautious, Dr. Adler insisted. There is something else you are not considering either. And that is? Hiram asked. My daughter, you idiot, Dr. Adler snorted. I cannot stay awake indefinitely, and neither can you. Your presence here is interfering with my control over her. I cannot keep her locked away as I once did. If we are both asleep at the same time, she will regain control of her body. Suppose she decides to commit suicide. Are you that eager to go to hell? I get your point, Hiram conceded. You get me out of this body soon, though. You hear? I'm not putting up with this much longer. Just sleep now, Dr. Adler replied. By the time you wake up, I will know if our search is over as quickly as it began. Hiram remained silent. Dr. Adler felt his presence leave the forefront of her mind and slip back into her subconscious. She set her skirt and turned to Angela. Tears streamed down the nurse's face as she struggled to move. Dr. Adler waved her hand, her eyes glowing. You can hear again. You do not remember anything that's happened since you sat down with your son. Now you can move. Angela's head jerked back. She shot a confused look at Dr. Adler. You fell asleep, the doctor offered. Angela grimaced. Whoa, she complained, rubbing the bridge of her nose. I feel lightheaded. It will pass, Dr. Adler said. She looked sympathetically down at Brandon. You may not walk again, she said, without a hint of sympathy in her expression. It was only a half-truth. Brandon wasn't ever going to do anything again, except lay there. His essence was gone. He was an empty shell, paralyzed from the neck down. He was dead. Dr. Adler needed Angela to have the illusion of hope long enough for her to finish her tests. "Oh, Jesus, kid," Angela whispered. Dr. Adler interrupted. "I need a computer with internet access." She thought about that for a second and added, "The faster the connection, the better." "We have high-speed internet tied into the hospital's mainframe," Angela choked. "Wunderbar," Dr. Adler exclaimed. Her unblinking eyes lit up. "Take me to it." Angela shook her head. "I'm not leaving Brandon." "Take me to it," Dr. Adler repeated. Her eyes flashed. "Of course, Doctor," Angela replied. "Right this way." Dr. Adler stooped over and picked up the test results. She determined Hiram was asleep, just like Margaret. She smiled and looked at Brandon. "You may be my salvation, young man," she thought. "I am so glad you picked today to die." Dr. Adler followed Angela out of the room.